Hi everyone, I'm Will Kiefer, lead engineer on Plaid Protect. Thanks for joining this session. Today, we're going to go behind the scenes on how Plaid is tackling fraud in a fundamentally different and more effective way. By the end of the session, you'll leave with two key takeaways. One, a clear understanding of why Plaid's position at the center of the financial ecosystem gives us a unique, unmatched view into fraud patterns that others simply can't see. And two, how Plaid Protect, our newest fraud intelligence platform, leverages that position to uncover hidden risks, detect coordinated attacks, and stop even the most sophisticated fraud using our latest machine learning model, the Trust Index. Let's start with the core challenge. Fraud is getting more sophisticated. The cost to commit it is lower than ever. With the rise in usage of LLMs, deepfakes, emulators, and synthetic data are all getting more accessible, much better, and much cheaper. And the problem for most businesses is you're only seeing your slice of the problem. Fraudsters know this. They reuse devices, emails, phone numbers, and accounts, but they spread them out across platforms and apps. So when you're looking at them in isolation, they look clean. But when you look at them together with Plaid's view, fraud is in plain sight. At Plaid, we connect over 7,000 apps and have visibility into billions of interactions across devices, bank accounts, and time. This is where things change. Think about it like 6 degrees of separation, but for fraud. Let's say a user signs up for a sports betting app. They go through an identity check and pass without issue. Looks clean. But behind the scenes, here's what Plaid sees. That same phone number was just used to open a crypto wallet on another platform. The email address matches a user on a peer-to-peer payments app that was recently flagged for promo abuse. The bank account has bounced between multiple fintechs in the past week, showing signs of account cycling. On their own, these events seem unrelated, but together, they paint a clear picture of multi-platform abuse, likely a fraudster testing the limits across different apps. No single company could see this web of connections, but Plaid Protect sees it all and flags the risk before fraud happens. At the center of Plaid Protect is the Trust Index, a real-time risk score powered by 10,000 fraud-specific attributes. It's built on signals that fraudsters can't fake, like the cross-app information sharing I just mentioned, bank account history, device signatures and usage, behavioral patterns, and more. And with the release of our latest model version, Ti2, we've taken it even further, incorporating insights from both rich transaction history and network-wide relationship mapping to give a much deeper view of user risk. With Ti2, you're no longer relying on a single signal. You're seeing how users, devices, and accounts are connected across the entire financial ecosystem. Let's take a closer look at how we do that. One of the most powerful new components in Ti2 is our ability to map and analyze user relationships through user graphs. While Plaid Protect provides attributes and risk scores that our graph detects, I want to reveal to you a bit of how this is accomplished, and what Ti2 is seeing behind the scenes, and how we visualize connections between users, devices, and fraud indicators. Here are connections from a single user inside a single app. The larger circles represent metadata connections like devices, sessions, accounts, etc. And the smaller circles represent notable events. Looks innocuous from this perspective. However, when we add in all the other events we see within the Plaid network, the image becomes drastically different. Here, we see these large clusters, which represent a coordinated fraud ring across many applications, attempting to share the same set of compromised accounts. Obvious large clusters like these are not the only sign of fraud within our event graph. Imagine bad actors who have a pool of bank accounts they wish to use for fraud. They try to avoid detection with a simple rule: don't use the same bank account more than twice. This subtle attempt to avoid detection is still detectable within our network. You can see here that this particular fraud pattern emerges as a long chain of connections between different users and accounts. Let's zoom in. Here, you can see that user 2 has connected 2 bank accounts, B and C. Those 2 bank accounts are reused exactly once by other users, 1 and 3, who in turn connect exactly 2 bank accounts themselves, shared with other fraudulent users, continuing the chain. What you're seeing here is real fraud data we've detected within our graph. Now, fraudsters will always use different heuristics than the one we're discussing, so the patterns may look different, but no matter what, the patterns exist and Plaid Protect can detect them. This brings us to one of the key advancements of the Plaid Trust Index v2. In addition to the many hard-to-fake attributes we use in our models, we also now incorporate these graph-based patterns to help catch a wide variety of suspicious connections. Attributes based off of the graph structure are computed live so that we can always spot fraud as it is developing. Here's one more specific real-world example. We mapped a single node representing one device connected to dozens of signups across different fintechs. This particular pattern looks like a pinwheel or a flower. Each petal of the activity happened within a tight time window. What tied them together? The device kept switching between VPNs and proxies, jumping IPs every time an address was deny listed. From any single app's perspective, these were totally separate users, but on the graph, it was clearly one actor cycling identities and IPs to avoid detection. This is where graph-based risk features in Ti2 shine. They pick up the structure and timing of this behavior and surface it in real time. Another new feature of Ti2, we can now incorporate transaction history into our risk model. Transaction history is one of the strongest signals we have for spotting fraud, since it shows how an account actually behaves over time. Fraudsters can fake identity info, but it's much harder to fake consistent spending patterns. Some concrete ways this helps: account takeover. If an account that usually pays a phone bill once a month suddenly does 10 international wire transfers at 3 a.m., anomaly detection on timing and merchant categories will flag it. Money mule activity. Money comes in from one source and shoots right back out to a bunch of unrelated accounts. Graph analysis and velocity checks catch that. Synthetic identities. Brand new accounts with thin history that suddenly show diverse, high-risk merchant activity. Pattern matching and category analysis expose those. Friendly fraud or chargebacks. Repeat purchases from the same merchant quickly followed by disputes. Temporal clustering highlights this abuse. Bot or script abuse. Microtransactions every few seconds or activity spikes at odd hours. Rate limiting and time series models pick it up. Here's a real case from our own investigations. We flagged an account that showed repeat peer-to-peer transfers and incoming payments from popular fintechs and crypto apps, followed by cash outs from ATMs and a string of $499 purchases at Best Buy. Why $499? That's the exact price of a PlayStation 5, a favorite for reselling and laundering stolen funds. We've seen this again and again, fraudsters using accounts as mules, funneling money in and out with high-value, low-friction purchases. Without transaction history, the account looks clean, but with it, the pattern is obvious, and Ti2 learns to detect it. Plaid Protect represents a step change in how we approach fraud detection, one that's only possible because of Plaid's network-level vantage point. And it works. In recent tests, Plaid Protect was able to detect substantially more fraud than customers' existing solutions. A few examples. For a large digital lender, they were able to run a test that showed Plaid Protect would have been able to detect 40% of first-party fraud undetected by their existing solutions by stepping up just 5% of their users. For a leading cash advance service, in testing, Plaid Protect proved it would have caught 43% of the fraud by stepping up just 1 in 10 users joining their platform. And in yet another test, Plaid Protect proved it would have prevented 50% of a top crypto firm's fraud losses. We're so excited about the results thus far with Plaid Protect, and most of these results were actually from our original Ti1 model. With Ti2's release, we are seeing upwards of 30% increase in recall, and we're just getting started. By aggregating signals across 7,000 apps and billions of interactions, we're able to detect fraud patterns that would be invisible in isolation, whether it's long-tailed device reuse, synthetic identity clusters, or first-party fraud signatures that evolve over time. With Ti2, we've incorporated real-time graph analytics, deep transaction history features, and a growing set of behavioral signals into a unified fraud risk model. These aren't static heuristics, they're live, ML-derived features computed across user, device, and network dimensions. It's fraud detection that adapts in flight. Thanks for listening. Let's address a few common questions before we wrap up. When in the user journey can you get a Ti2 score? Anytime. Plaid Protect can score users at any point from their first interaction on a sign-up page to high-risk events like money movement, password resets, or new device logins. You can apply friction only when it's needed, not by default. What if we're already using another fraud tool? That's fine. Protect is designed to work alongside or enhance your existing systems. You can leverage additional identity verification tools with Protect or bring your own. Does Plaid Protect have an SDK? Yes. Plaid Protect has a front-end SDK that you can use to collect device signatures and begin collecting data and sending events. We also have back-end SDKs for all of our APIs. How big of a lift is the integration for Protect? If you're already using Plaid, turning on Protect is a very light lift. It plugs into existing link or API workflows with either no or minimal changes. And for new customers, integration is still easy with our simple Protect SDK. And of course, there are plenty of deeper integration options available. Thanks again for listening today. We hope you enjoyed Plaid Protect and Ti2. See you soon.